Hello guys, I hope you're okay. In the previous lesson we looked at cells. Now under cells we are going to look at cell specialization. Cell specialization. Now you should take note of this, that new cells are formed from already existing what? Cells by cell division in an organism. At first they are all similar in structure. But in order to be suited for their function, they have to undergo cell what? Specialization. This is a process by which a cell undergoes specific changes in structure and chemical composition of the cytoplasm in order to perform a specific function. For instance, we have ciliated cells. Examples of specialized cells. We have ciliated cells, root hair cells, xylem vessels, guard cells, nerve cells, muscle cells, white blood cells, and red blood what? Red blood cells. Now let's start with the first one. Let's start with the ciliated cell. What is the function of a ciliated cell and what are ciliated cells? Ciliated cells are cells that are found in the inner lining of the respiratory tract and oviduct. So they are found in two regions, in the respiratory tract and oviduct in women. Now, in the respiratory tract, they sweep out mucus containing dust particles and germs. Okay, so those ciliated cells that are found in the respiratory tract, they help in removing mucus that contain what? That contains dust particles and germs. Number two, when ciliated cells are in the oviduct, they help to move the ovum towards the uterus. Okay, ovum or ovum towards the what? Towards the uterus. Now, what are the adaptations? What are the adaptations of what? Ciliated cells. Adaptations, it means those features that help you to identify or to know that this is a ciliated what? Ciliated cell. Number one, a ciliated cell has cytoplasmic hairs called what? Cilia. Are we together? And also high concentration of mitochondria in the cytoplasm. So mitochondria, remember what we looked at, that it is the powerhouse of a cell. So mitochondria helps to generate energy for movement of the cilia. Okay, so these are the two structures. So we have cilia here, then this space is cytoplasm, this is the nucleus. Okay, then you have the cell what? Cell membrane. Okay, now I think that's all about the ciliated cell. You need to know its the structure, what it looks like. Number two, you need to know the function. Number three, the adaptation. Let's go to the next, the specialized cell, the root hair cell. Now, the root hair cell, by the way, ciliated cell is an example of an animal cell. Okay, now root hair cell, these are cells found near the tips of roots. This is plant cell, a plant cell. Okay, now the functions of a root hair cell, number one is that it absorbs water and mineral salts. Root hair cells absorb water and mineral salts. Number two, they anchor the plant in the ground. So they offer anchorage, stability of a plant. Now, what are the adaptations of a root hair cell? Number one, it has an elongated outgrowth, which is called a long extension, which increases the surface area for faster diffusion during absorption. Okay, this is an elongated what? This is an elongated outgrowth, this part. Okay. Now, number 2, it doesn't have chloroplasts to create more room for absorption. Okay. No chloroplasts. Thirdly, it has high concentration also of mitochondria to provide energy for active transport, active absorption, okay, active transport and absorption and transportation or transport of mineral salts. Now, in addition, root hair cells are numerous, which further increases their surface area, their surface areas. Okay. So we've looked at ciliated cells and the root hair cells. Let's go to the third specialized cell. The third specialized cell is the xylem cell. The function of a xylem cell is to conduct water and mineral salts, number 1. Number 2, to offer mechanical support to the plant. Okay. Now, what are the adaptations of the xylem cell? 1, the end walls of neighboring cells are broken, okay? Are broken to form continuous what? Continuous tube. All together to form continuous tube. Number 2, protoplasm is absent, leaving a hollow space in the middle of the what? In the middle of the cell. Number 3, walls are lignified, meaning they are filled with lignin to provide mechanical what? Mechanical support. So this is a good example of xylem vessels. Okay, of xylem vessels. Let's go to the fourth. Now we've looked at the xylem cells, root hair cells, and the ciliated cell. Let's go to the fourth one, which is the muscle cell. Now, the function of muscle cells is to contractions to produce, is for contraction to produce movement. Okay. Yes, they contract and relax to produce movement. Now, adaptation of a muscle cell, it has abundance of mitochondria to release energy for contraction. Number 2, presence of actin and the myosin filaments in the cytoplasm which carry out contraction. Okay. Basically, we have 3 types of muscles. We have smooth muscle cells, skeletal muscle cells, and we have cardiac muscle cells. Now, cardiac, this is the muscle of the heart, the muscle cells of the heart. The skeletal muscle cells, muscles of the bones. Smooth muscle cells, example, muscles of the stomach. Okay. Now, as seen from the diagram, the shape of different types of muscles are different from each other. As you can see, are different from what? From each other. Now, that's all about the muscle cell. We've looked at the root hair cell, ciliated cell, xylem cell, then the muscle cell. Now, the red blood cells. Now, the red blood cells are also known as erythrocytes. The functions of red blood cells is basically to transport oxygen and small amounts of carbon dioxide. Okay. Now, how can you know that this is a red blood cell? Now, that's what you call adaptations. Number 1, the shape is biconcave or disc shaped. Why is it like that? Is to increase the surface area for diffusion of oxygen. Another adaptation, it has the presence of red pigment called hemoglobin, which has a high affinity. Affinity, it means attraction for oxygen. So it has high affinity for oxygen, meaning high attraction for oxygen. Okay? Now, hemoglobin combines with oxygen to form oxyhemoglobin when oxygen concentration are high in the lungs. Okay? When oxygen concentration are high in the lungs, hemoglobin combines with oxygen to form oxyhemoglobin. Now, when oxygen concentrations are low, like for instance in the muscles, oxyhemoglobin dissociates, forming hemoglobin and the oxygen. Okay? Forming oxygen. As illustrated by the following word equation. Check. Hemoglobin reacting with oxygen to form oxyhemoglobin. Now this is in the lungs. Now in the muscles, the reverse process takes place. Hemoglobin and oxygen dissociate. Okay. Another adaptation is of red blood cells is that it has the absence. It doesn't have a nucleus to create more room for hemoglobin. This is the structure of red blood what? Red blood cell. Okay. Now let's look at nerve cells or the neuron. The function of neurons is just to conduct electrical impulses or nerve impulses from one part of the body to another. Are we together? Now, how can you know that this one is a nerve cell? Number one, presence of dendrites that collect impulses from neighboring cells. Number two, presence of axon that carries impulse from one end of the neuron to another. Number three, presence of synaptic knob that forms a link with another neurons. Number four, presence of nodes of Ranvier that make impulses move faster. You should take note that the part of the neuron having the nucleus and cytoplasm is called the cell body, not body cell, but the cell what? The cell body. These here are the good examples of these nerve cells or neurons. You have three types. We have the motor neuron here, you have the sensory neuron, and you have the relay neuron. Okay. Now, the sensory neuron here is found on what? Sensory what? Sense organs. Okay. Called receptors. Then the relay neuron. So this one receives information from receptors. Then it transmits it to the relay neuron, also known as the intermediate neuron. Then the intermediate neuron transmits it to the motor neuron. Okay? We will look at this when we'll be looking at the nervous system. All right? Now, let's look at the white blood cells. White blood cells, these are cells that defend the body against infections or diseases. Now, there are basically two examples of white blood cells. We have phagocytes and lymphocytes. Phagocytes, the function of phagocytes, you know that they defend the body against infection, but how do they defend? They defend the body against infection by engulfing and digesting what? Germs or foreign bodies. How they do this, their cells have a lobed what? Lobed nucleus. This one. Okay, it's like this. It has a what? A lobed nucleus which makes engulfing of germs easier. It is amoeboic movement, which makes it possible for them to move towards germs. Okay, it moves like an amoeba. Okay. Number 3, they have no fixed shape but can change their shapes, making engulfing of foreign bodies possible. These are phagocytes. How about lymphocytes? Check. Lymphocytes, they defend the body against infection by producing antibodies and antitoxins. Antibodies are just proteins that destroy germs or foreign bodies, while antitoxins are proteins that neutralize poisons from germs. You see? Now, how can you differentiate in the structure between a phagocyte and a lymphocyte? Now, this one has a large round nucleus and thin what? Thin cytoplasm. Okay? And thin cytoplasm. Okay. Now, let's look at guard cells. We are still looking at specialized cells. Guard cells are a pair of cells that surround each stoma. Are we together? The function is to control the size of the of the stoma. Adaptation, they occur in pairs, and each cell has a semi-circular shape or curved shape when turgid, and a straight shape when plasmolized. What it means when turgid, it means when it absorbs water. Plasmolized, when it loses what? When it loses water. That's what it means. Okay? Another adaptation is that their cell walls are thicker around the stoma than anywhere else. This makes it possible for the stoma to open when these cells absorb what? Absorb water. Okay? Like here, as you can see, these are guard what? Are guard cells. Okay? This one is open. This one is closed. Okay? Now, let's look at the phloem cell. The phloem cells, their basic function is to transport manufactured food from one part of the plant to another. Adaptations, end walls between neighboring cells are perforated to form sieve plates. Okay, to form sieve plates, as you can see here and here. Okay. Number 2, protoplasm is partly lost, leaving behind some cytoplasmic strands. Okay, some cytoplasmic strands. Are we together? Now, the last adaptation is that it has a companion cell, and this is very important, by the way. It has a what? A companion cell. This cell here is a companion cell, which supply the phloem with enzymes and ATP. Okay, that is energy adenosine triphosphate. Okay. Now, let's look at this other specialized cell known as the palisade cell. Now, the palisade cell, this is the cell that is found in the leaves. This one. This is a palisade what? This is a palisade cell. Okay? The function is to carry out what? Photosynthesis. Is to carry out photosynthesis. Adaptation, it has high concentration of chloroplasts. Remember when I talked about the root hair cell, that the root hair cells don't have chloroplasts, okay, because they're found in the roots. Now, chloroplasts contain chlorophyll, which is a green pigment used to trap light energy for photosynthesis. The second adaptation is that the cells are longer vertically than horizontally. This allows chloroplasts to migrate upwards or downwards as light intensity changes, so that they're not damaged by excess light. Okay, as you can see here. All right. So when you're asked that when they say this is the specialized cell and name the cell, this is a palisade cell. Don't say a plant cell. Are we together? Don't say a plant cell. This is a palisade what? This is a palisade cell. Okay, a palisade cell. Now, we have looked at specialized cells. In the next lesson, we are going to look at cell organization. Cell organization. After cell organization, we'll look at the transport across the cell membrane. That is osmosis, active transport, and the diffusion. That's what we'll look at in the next lesson. So I'll say I'm sending work